something
Yeah.
positive. Yeah.
So, so I guess I'm just kind of want to turn you loose. There's so many things. I mean, I would like to say a couple of things that I just am so happy for your country that they are being acknowledged for their drone technology, that the world actually knows that they need Ukraine, and I think that that's a nice change of dynamics, and that's one thing. And I know that the taking the sanctions off and the war in Iran is definitely having an impact. And I was hoping that you just might address some of those things.
Thank you so much. As Ukraine, we know how it feels when people do not help you in very tough situations. Because honestly, I know that you have a very sincere community, so perhaps I can share with you an internal joke that was widespread all over Ukrainian internet, showing memes of Ukrainians back in 2022. We had a lot of hashtags and posters like "Close the skies." And another meme shows how everything changed and it's like, Ukraine, please close the skies 2022. And everybody says, no, sorry, that's an escalation to save civilians. It's dangerous to protect hospitals on Ukrainian territory. And then 2026, and the world says, Ukraine, close the skies. And we say, ok. And that is a huge change because I'm sure that back in 2022, even we, knowing our strengths, would not believe it was possible. But it also shows a very negative thing that the world was not attentively watching this war, especially some of our big NATO allies. They believed in strengths, in decades of experience, but they did not observe how quickly the war changes. And a lot of dangerous discoveries and innovations were the results of the Second World War, like the nuclear bomb. And these new wars of the 21st century, they evolve even faster with AI, with different drone technologies. Ukraine and not having access to the things we needed had to innovate to create, and that's why we have cost-effective solutions. But it also shows that these big countries entering wars literally do not care about the things we were shouting about, we were saying. And now we all know, despite this disinformation campaign that runs all over the US media too, that during this less than a month of war, um, way more money was spent and more missiles was spent than in Ukraine during 4 years of this war. And that's insane because it is super expensive to stop drones with Patriots. And I see that there are different attitudes. Some politicians keep saying that, like, we don't need Ukraine, while we know that despite the danger, all the hotels in Kyiv are booked by people from the Middle East, by people from a lot of European countries who rushed here, especially after the start of the Iran war, to get the technologies, to get access to the producers, to protect themselves. And despite being bombed on a daily basis by Russia, that now has sanctions lifted. And by the way, as I was waiting, maybe that's the reason why I jumped in like that. We've just learned that sanctions on Belarus were lifted,
Oh boy.
on their banking system, on their industries. And we all know that's a huge window for Putin because Putin annexed Belarus. And to tell you the truth, these envoys for Belarus, they look so pathetic. And I don't have a feeling they represent the American people because it did not look even cool or strong. Even a kind of betrayal may look strong, like, but this looked pathetic, like two tired, frightened men reading the list of enterprises and banks they lift sanctions from, with no explanation why. Because Lukashenko is a dictator. Lukashenko is a person that runs Belarus for more than 30 years. He does not let elections be held. A lot of people are imprisoned, but most importantly, for example, yesterday, my region that is considered semi-safe was attacked by drones from the north that traveled from Belarus. Because we don't have a border with Russia, we have a border from Belarus. So they target us from Belarus, and the next day the US lift the sanctions. And everything is getting more and more crazy. And we understand that we can rely only on ourselves. The bad thing is that Russia may get more and more money just because of a number of mistakes made by other people that now want to blame others or do not understand why some of the EU countries do not want to jump in the war they did not know about. And I've just watched a conversation of the Japanese Prime Minister with Donald Trump. It was similar, perhaps, to President Zelensky in some extent, because a Japanese journalist asked why were the allies not warned about the beginning of war, and President Trump answered that they wanted to make a surprise like Pearl Harbor. And I looked at that Prime Minister of Japan. She felt so bad and she did not know how to react. She, of course, did not speak about Hiroshima and Nagasaki in return, understanding that for decades, Japan was a trustworthy partner and ally of the United States. And this kind of attitude, it will not bring anything good to the free world because I can only imagine how leaders of Iran, how leaders of Russia, how leaders of North Korea and China that work together
So
enjoy this moment. It's totally unbelievable. That's something like, like the failure of Blitzkrieg was a positive, unbelievable moment. The same what now we observe is the country, and perhaps they could not believe that much luck.
yeah, I know. It's really hard to believe. I watched the talk between the the president of Finland gave a talk, I think yesterday or the day before, and one of the reporters asked him, "Why don't you say, yes, we'll help you if you do thus and so for Ukraine?" And he said, "That's a really good idea." And he then said he was going to talk to his other leaders to see if they could work something out to pressure the US in that way. We'll see.
But everybody knows you cannot trust the word of Donald Trump. And even if he signs an agreement, we know this will not work. So
But but
what I cannot understand, and I fully, I to some extent understand people who don't want to get involved in any foreign wars, who were tired of Ukraine. But then I have this question: even if you don't like Ukraine, do you understand that all the American intelligence services keep saying that Russia supplies Iran with intel, that Russia is behind their nuclear program? It is 100% that Russian scientists were working on that nuclear plants, developing nuclear bombs for Iranis. It's not the Iran program. And right now, they literally help target American military bases. And in return, Putin gets sanctions lifted, an ability to sell oil when, because of our effective work that we did with inexpensive Ukrainian drones, they lost 50% of their oil and gas revenue in 2025. And that already put Russia on the brink of the collapse and Putin's regime, which would be superb. And now Trump literally saves them intentionally or unintentionally. And once again, it's not about Ukraine. It's now about the American military personnel. It's now about the safety and security. It's now about the nuclear program that they so much want to destroy. So it's fully insane. And when sometimes I hear that, this comparison to like, well, Russia helps Iran and we helped Ukraine. It's a very different thing to compare because Iran was a threat to you. It was developing nuclear program against you, and Ukraine was attacked after giving up its nuclear weapons. So it's so immoral to even compare it. And I think it's very destructive for the world in general. It's just like unbelievable. And it also demonstrates a huge level of incompetence or disrespect to, I'm sure that the United States have great intelligence, have great military people, but perhaps they have no influence at the moment.
I think no.
And that's the problem because somehow a few people believe they know everything, but they are fighting in Iran or we are fighting in Russia, radical regimes that are extremely ideological and they don't care about business deals. Plus, you've already read that what they did with this Hormuz, is that the English or Hormuz Gulf?
Import moves, yeah.
That now the representatives of the Iran regime began taking money for passing off the ships, like 10%. And this will literally cover them all the sanctions imposed by the United States. And they have this like literally win-win situation. And we also understand that like it's so bad that nobody's speaking the truth, nobody is respectful to the allies. And you can hear Hexed saying like, we are winning, please help us
Right.
immediately. So just like help you win. Maybe that's the time when we have to be honest, when we have to say that, okay, let's try to solve this problem partially created by you, and let's respect the allies. Let's think how to weaken Russia, which is also responsible for the success of Iran defense. But no, nobody's talking about that, just humiliation and things like this conversation with the Japanese Prime Minister.
So do you think that, I mean, how do you see Europe responding here in the next short period of time? Because things are happening so fast and they're changing. I mean, really by every hour, something has changed, at least as far as the news that we get here. And I know that Europe is standing strong with Ukraine. I'm just wondering how they're going to put that into actual practice and step up somehow, because I think that Ukraine is going to need some extra help really soon, given that.
Well, first of all, one important thing that people have to know, at least for a year since Donald Trump is in the office, we do not receive any American help. Because I have people asking me, how will you feel if he stops the help? There is no help.
Help.
Sometimes we have problems with purchasing things for the money of Ukraine or for the money of the European Union. There are some restrictions and so on. For example, President Zelensky was talking about our ability to construct missiles for Patriot systems, that we can already build them. All we need is a permission, a license from the United States. And I have all the feelings in the world that we will not get it,
Yeah.
even though the whole world needs this, because you so irresponsibly spend them in the Middle East. I'm sorry. And so there are some very weird obstacles that no one can explain. So at least for a year, we live without that. And the help that was given to Ukraine is not the one that destroyed the stockpiles, because we were given the leftovers, not that many Patriot
I know.
systems and anything. And the fact that now Hexit wants 200 billion more. I'm sorry. Plus, remember that the US help was given in a very unusual way. While the Europeans named the sum of money, and that's exactly what they gave, in the United States, it is also the sum that is for the reconstruction of your stockpile. So, for example, if you are giving us $10 billion, it's like $5 billion for us and $5 billion for you to cover what you have given to us. So it's so just like unjust and wrong, and you don't know how to get out of this pile of lies. So it's not that we can abruptly lose the help. We already lost it. And even before Donald Trump became a president with the Speaker Johnson, they blocked the aid to Ukraine. And that's the reason why we lost Avdiivka, because we did not receive the missiles we needed, and some weapons that were promised, and some that were paid even for. So it was bad because everybody's talking like it was just an event. No, it cost us Avdiivka, and it cost us hundreds of lives.
Yeah.
And so, at least for a year, we are doing it by ourselves. The thing is, I also observe the change in the attitude of many European leaders towards the way they hold their conversations with the White House. Um, I once again see that at the beginning they were all super polite and super tolerant to some very weird and unusual things. And sometimes it was difficult to watch, but I believe that was the strategy, like to keep Donald Trump on track, preserving NATO, preserving decades of friendship that should not be ruined by one person's ill behavior. But now, when he's not just his words, but his actions became so dangerous and so unpredictable, I do have this feeling that now they communicate with him differently, and they tell him a lot of no's. and, for example, Germany and other countries, and they realize that it's not just the bad mouth, like different words, because some people can say bad things but do good things.
Right.
And now they see that no, he's saying bad things. He humiliates them, he does not warn them. And now, like, um, about the future of NATO, it's an extremely decisive moment. It's exactly what Russia wants for it to be destroyed. But the communication that we have is not respectful. Plus, you know that any military operation that was joined by NATO forces was always previously discussed with them. What can you do? How can you help? What will be your part? What countries participate? What countries did not? That's exactly how it was in Afghanistan, in Iraq, elsewhere. And here we didn't have that communication at all.
Yeah.
And that's why I believe a lot of EU leaders are now thinking on how to act totally without the United States. I also heard about some here, like local YouTubers speak about a lot of EU delegations now traveling to Turkey, speaking with Erdogan, who is also not the most democratic leader, but they fear a huge immigration crisis caused by war in the Middle East, and they want to stop the wave, and also talking about energy and other stuff. So I believe that in the months to come there will be some negative consequences for the White House for such behavior and such attitude, because maybe with this failure in Iran, Donald Trump felt that allies matter. That this architecture is actually important. But here, once again, maybe I sound a little bit critical. Please forgive me. I mean, Ukraine with Belarus drones destroying my electricity grid, and the next day, US lifting sanctions. So that's one reason. And another reason, I never equate such decisions and actions with the decisions and actions of the people of the United States. And we feel your support, we feel your disappointment too. And we've been in the situations like that. Trust me, that's why we had the revolution of dignity. So when I'm talking about the White House, you might have noticed I don't say the US, I'm saying the White House, the administration, a
Oh,
couple of people,
I appreciate
because
that. It's the same as with,
that's
yeah,
exactly how it feels. And I believe that even in the Republican Party, there are a lot of people who are shocked and frightened and maybe even destroyed by such decisions. But unfortunately, it has also global
it
consequences.
has massive global and that is the thing that is the most concerning, I think, to almost everyone, is that really there's no predicting what Donald Trump's next move will be. He says he's going on to Cuba next. We'll
I will
see.
tell you one meme that you may like. God help me to translate it. It is also popular here in Ukraine, and it says, like, it shows Donald Trump wearing something in the Japanese style, like philosophy or something, and it says, like, if you don't have a plan, your enemy won't be able to know your plan. And for example, the request that he gave to allies, like help us unblock the Hormuz Gulf,
Yeah.
they cannot, because like the fleet of the United States and so on is way bigger. Like Finland cannot help you here. We can help with drones, we can help with something. But what he did, the mess he did, even if they wanted, they cannot clean, because such operations have to be built for months with professionals, with coordinations, with predictions. All agreed that Iran's attacks on neighboring countries like Kuwait, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia was a total surprise. But it may be that even the American intelligence warned Donald Trump about this, and it seemed impossible for him from a business perspective. But Iran or Russia does not think in business perspectives, and that's a total failure. And how to clean this mess, nobody knows.
That is the real problem, isn't it? Is nobody knows what to do about it now. And I mean, personally, I feel like with Hegseth and Trump, neither one of them are ever going to admit that they made a mistake.
Yes.
That's been Donald Trump's MO forever, is never to admit that anything's wrong and never to apologize, just keep on deny, 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 and distract, which is pretty much what's going on now. But what I'm seeing is I understand that Switzerland just closed their sky. They won't let the U.S. fly over their skies. Spain won't let the U.S. use the base there for landing and refueling and maintenance and all that. And I think that there's some other countries getting ready to close their skies also to the U.S. being able to fly over. And the more that this happens, the angrier that the White House is going to get, and that just like and then you never know what the response is going to be because when they get mad, they just fly off and do
Yeah, but it's not a lot that they can do. Apart, for example,
that. Who can
uh,
do?
and that they can do, like if they are crazy, there is not much that they can do too. Like being angry, okay, they can ruin more alliances, they can cause more problems. But I love the phrase of one expert here who said that at a certain moment, reality will win over Donald Trump.
I hope so.
You cannot just avoid it. Trust me, as a Ukrainian, I did not believe all these warnings about the full-scale war.
Right.
I also thought something may happen on the border where we had our troops located. Never in my life I could imagine aviation bombing us, my city, missiles. It was totally like for you. It seems very impossible.
Give me 1 second,
And
Anna. Just
mhm.
1 second. Excuse me. I just need to let the listening audience know for the FCC rules that you are listening to KMUD Garberville. This is Cindy Anna Jones with the Music is Medicine show, and we are speaking with Anna from Ukraine. Okay.
Thank you. So, the thing is, no matter how you try to reconstruct the reality or hide from reality, it will reach you.
Mhm.
And perhaps that's what makes Donald Trump and Hexet so angry, because like everybody understands when they say we are winning, please help us.
It makes no sense.
You don't have to be a political expert to understand.
Yeah.
Uh, or just like with that blocked Gulf or attacks on adjacent countries, this was totally unpredictable. This is a complete mess, and nobody has a plan. Plus, nobody trusts Donald Trump. That's also true. Like, and what I kind of like is that people stopped glorifying him to satisfy him. That's what the European leaders tried hard.
Yeah, they did.
And if he was more realistic, he'd use that moment, he'd keep that image of an unpredictable person, but still follow the rules. But these actions, like nobody wants to, evaporate just because he made this mistake. And he does not switch to this normal cooperation mode, like, okay, guys, I'm sorry I was wrong. Let's think what we can do. No, he keeps saying that everything is fine. So
Yeah,
I did love one comment that came from President Zelensky, and it also shows the shift in the global attitudes when he was asked if he saw the comment of Donald Trump that Ukraine is the last country he may need help from. Nobody wants it, nobody needs these drone technologies. And he said, like, I don't care, that's all rhetorics, but our specialists are already working. So whatever he's saying, it doesn't matter.
yeah,
And it's also important because, like, for so many months, we had to keep pretending that we don't see the absurdity and that it's just okay. It was, from my perspective, it was a wrong tactics that maybe only encouraged him to continue humiliating others or doing some unpredictable things. But now it's the moment of truth.
yeah. I'm not sure that. I don't think. I don't know that there was any right or wrong way to deal with it because he's not predictable. He You never know exactly what is going to trigger his ego or his anger. You just never know.
Yeah, but there are, you know what we all love about the United States? Checks and balances.
Wanted to hear you talk about that a little bit, actually.
Yeah, checks and balances. And that is something that we always wanted to copy paste in our countries. And then, even if you have a totally unpredictable person as the president, there are a lot of institutions, courts, procedures that have to put this person in control. And that's how the law is working. That's how countries operating because we're not in the Middle Ages. And I'm actually surprised to see how a lot of things he violates. And well, it seems to me that there are already some court decisions
There are
that
many,
bring him
actually.
back, and the same can be in any aspect. So, once again, it is, if we think about just the United States, one person or just a very small group of people should not ruin all the heritage of your beautiful country. This would make Russia very happy. This would destroy a lot of lives, maybe not like physically, but at least like personally, professionally. And it's so bad that it happens in such a pace, like crazy pace. And I have like, we live in Ukraine, and Ukraine is a dangerous country because of Russia right now. I have a lot of friends who now say they will not travel to the United States just like for business or for some cultural heritage projects, that they say, oh, it's dangerous. I don't want to go there now.
Yeah, well,
Just think about this. People from a country at war say we won't travel to the US because it's dangerous there right now.
well, and it's true. And the thing is that the checks and balances haven't been working because because the one party has the entire control. It looks like that will be changing in November when we have our elections, if we have our elections, and I
That's
think
what
that's
we all worry
yeah,
about,
exactly.
actually. That's all what we worry about. And that might be one of the reasons why Donald Trump so much likes leaders of Belarus and Russia. Maybe they silently have this exchange of experience how to.
Tactics. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big thing that what's coming up is next, not this weekend, but the following weekend on the 28th of March is the next No Kings um, Day of
Mhm.
Action. And in the US, we can't, it will never, I can't ever imagine seeing it happen every day. But when it is like a day that's set aside like this, the last time it happened, it was the largest protest marches in the US history. And I am hoping against hope that this next one will be even larger. I can't imagine that it won't with everything that's been going on. I just think it's so important that numbers matter on days like these.
Yeah, I think that more and more people in the US will now understand more about the revolution of dignity. Because you are lucky people. You lived for centuries in democracy. It may be imperfect sometimes. Not all of your leaders were superb, but the system was working and people were more free than we in Eastern Europe. And that's why we are so aware, we are so alert, like we are very, very attentive to this signs that demonstrate we're losing something. That was the reason for our revolutions when we felt that the elections are rigged, or for example, Yanukovych single personally decided to break our association with the EU. All the people wanted to move in that direction, and he personally, because Putin ordered him so, said no. So that was the main reason for the revolution of dignity. And because we knew that step by step, it may happen quite, like silently and not that obviously. But in the US, it seems very
It
obvious.
seems
But
very obvious.
sometimes it happens in this like lazy mode, as
Mhm.
with Belarus. And then you end up in a country where you have your leader for a quarter of a century, you don't have any freedoms and rights, and if you criticize, you're imprisoned. So it all happens like step by step. That's why it's super important to protect this, because uh, the country is what matters, not a person. And in our case, Yanukovych flee to Russia. He has Russian citizenship, and I believe it says all, even if you had any doubts, right?
Mhm.
Who that person was working for. And the same if you see that your president is working for his personal gains, just like for money. Honestly, we sometimes speak about these cultural differences. We are not that financially centered, and being like super rich is often seen negatively in Ukraine. Like being rich is okay, but being super rich is always concerning. And that's why we always try that our presidents, prime ministers are not connected or are not super rich people. And because somehow they are super greedy and they can sell the interests of the whole country for the benefits of cooperating with Putin, for example, which already goes against the interests of the United States. Your people are targeted on your military bases just because the Kremlin gave Iran the coordinates.
Yes, that's like one of the things that I don't think is actually getting enough exposure in the media. How serious that is. That Russia's giving Iran the coordinates of our military bases and our military units, and enabling Russia to then kill our soldiers, and so how could
And
we be
making you
cooperating with
weaker.
them?
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't either. No, I
And
just
he tries to say that just we're helping Ukraine and then Russia's helping Iran. No, I'm sorry. Russia invaded Ukraine
yeah.
that gave up nuclear weapons, and Iran was threatening to kill your president and was building a nuclear program. So don't you sense the difference?
Yeah. Yeah, it's massive. And I do feel like one of the things, when we were just talking about this a little bit, but I was hoping that again that you could encourage our listeners about how important it is to be involved when it be involved and not just sit back and watch it happen. You have
Uh,
to do something.
You are right, and I do have this feeling that people understand this. Plus, it all happens in an extremely fast pace, but that is to some extent in an exaggerated format what we observe in Russia now, when people chose to be very apolitical and they always avoided questions about the war. And it's a problem of many societies that, like, you have 10% who are anti-war, for example, in Russia, you have 25% who are super pro-war, but the decision is made by those in the middle, and they want to be apolitical, not take any responsibilities, not risk anything. And now they go out and protest more and more often because until the sanctions are lifted, they had serious economic problems. They had serious defense problems with internet shutdowns in Moscow for weeks. And this destroys businesses. This causes a lot of problems for people. So they started reaping these consequences, feeling these consequences, even though they saw that their apolitical position let them do whatever they want. We are ordinary people, will not touch them, but it touches you in very unexpected ways.
Mhm.
It touches you economically, it touches you with the danger of, I don't know, a war, or some people may get killed on the streets of the United States. This is all the consequences of one and the same decision. And the more freedoms you lose, the more difficult it will be to gain them back.
Yeah, it's exactly the
Because if people with authoritarian dreams manage to grasp all the power and stay like 4 years, something, they will pass on this power to the next heir or something. I don't know.
um,
That's how it works. Or they will change something. Putin also first played democracy, had elections, substituted himself with Medvedev, and then returned once and forever. Trump may not have that much time, but he may have people to substitute him.
mhm.
And when he is in the control of the election process, of everything, it's super difficult to protect them from any interference. And that's what
Yeah,
authoritarian regimes uses. That's why it's super important to act when it is still not too late, when they still did not manage to develop networks, very loyal people, and people. That's another very Russian technique, by the way, that we observe with the Epstein files and people involved in the cases when they make you accomplice of some of their crimes. And then, even if you are a good person, you cannot act against them because they have a lot of things against you.
right.
And that what may happen with some good people in the Republican Party or some good people in courts or some good people elsewhere, because they fear to react. They agree on some terms and then they get very dirty and they also become criminal and then they fight for this regime because otherwise it means
They're
the end for
exposed.
them too.
Yeah.
That is a very Russian technology and it's also very dangerous. But for ordinary people, it's super important not to let this threshold of such people become big.
Right.
With each month, with each year, there will be more and more, and they will protect their system more and more fiercely. Once again, to change Putin in 2011 was way easier than to change him now. Maybe we are working on economic problems, but you kind of not let us finish the
I know
job.
it was so close. It was so, so close. That was heartbreaking, honestly, because I know from just from you and other many sources that the economy of Russia was falling. It was failing.
Well,
Yeah,
let's still hope that they won't manage to save it to that extent. There are still chances. Because, once again, if this war continues for long, it will definitely give a lot of benefits to Putin. But if this war continues for long, it also totally destroys Donald Trump.
right. Exactly.
So he has to make this choice.
Well, we'll see. I mean, that's the whole thing. I mean, if you look at his entire life, every single thing that he has done that has been bad, it just gets like covered over and nothing ever happens. And it's like it's got to at some point something has to catch him, catch up with him. And I'm hoping that we're getting to that point. But we are getting to the point that we're going to have to stop our conversation soon, and I'm really sorry about that. Because yeah, because I mean we could talk all day.
Yeah, plus the situation in the world is so dynamic, just like it's getting crazy and crazier.
Yeah, it is getting crazier, and I understand now that the White House is the defense. They're setting their sights on Latin America. I mean, and it's just I don't understand. I do not understand how their mindset can be what it is, and that people. I don't know. I am happy to see the courts reacting.
Yeah, plus it doesn't have to be personal. You know, when Donald Trump says that I want to get Cuba,
Right.
well, you are just a representative of the American people. You cannot speak for yourself.
But he doesn't see that.
That
He doesn't.
that's not okay. That's not how. That's like everybody sees that. It's not okay. It's just simply psychologically not okay.
No, it's not okay. And that's well, we're in a very serious and precarious moment in
I have a
time.
question to you. Do you see some Trump supporters changing their opinion after a year of his presidency, and is it like a visible proportion?
You know, I know that yes, there are many signs and many people, I mean people even that I know, they're hesitant to like give up this thing that they've put so much invested so much energy into being Trump supporters. They really hate to say
Yeah,
no.
because it's
They're
about personal, it's just like saying
right,
I was wrong. It's
right.
a game of politics. That's why it's so difficult.
It is
But
difficult, trying to give an off ramp to people so that they can gracefully, back down from their position. It's hard to do, but it's something that needs to happen in our way of communicating with each other to allow people to gradually back away from the position they've held so strongly. But yes, I do see many, many, especially in the Latin and the Black communities that voted for him. They feel totally betrayed, and they're definitely
same as anti-war people, I guess.
well, yeah. There's, I mean,
And Epstein file, those who
yeah,
wanted them to be
yeah.
released.
It's just, there's so much going on, and it's really it's head spinning, to live here right now. It's like you have to I have to like put away, all the news for many hours a day because otherwise I'm there because every hour something new and something awful is coming up, and it's just really it's hard to know how to keep your head above water keep your attitude right, and to know that honestly, just like the song that I was playing before we started talking, we're all in this together. We really are all in this together on a global level. And the sooner that we can realize that and begin to act in that way with respect towards each other, the sooner we'll have the world that we want, you know. But it's
Yeah.
one step at a time, two steps. What is it? One step forward, two steps back, something
Yeah,
like that.
we have to believe that we are smarter. I mean, all people who see this
Exactly.
reality.
That's
So
like
we gotta find a way out.
that's what I keep saying. We just have to be smarter. We are smart. We just have to remember how to use our brains and come
Yeah,
up with. I mean, there's so many really creative ways that people do, you know, make protests and make changes, and
yeah.
and people, little small people doing small acts of goodness and kindness that actually make a difference. And we need to hear more about those so we can be encouraged, you know, to know that it is up to us to make it happen.
I
So.
agree. I fully agree with you.
Oh,
United we stand.
yeah, exactly. Well, and that's the thing. That's the goal, isn't it? Of our enemies is to divide us so that we have no power, you know.
Yeah.
But we are going to have to close, but I would really love it if hopefully maybe we can do this again like really soon and kind of keep up.
Until the next war.
Yeah, no, yeah, so that we don't wait quite so long between these conversations. I find I love talking to you. I love hearing your perspective, and I feel like you have a good handle on this on the broad situation. You know, it's wonderful to speak with you about these things. I hope that you're safe. I'm concerned now that Belarus is going to start targeting your city, and
They do it from time to time. But thank you so much, Cindiana, for having me. Once again, if I have offended someone with my comments, please forgive. I'm an emotional person in a country at war. But I think it's important to speak about the dangers, and they are growing, and they are growing only also for the people in the United States. So the more we exchange our experiences, our skills, the more we support each other, the sooner the end of chaos and predictability will pass.
yeah, me too. And as if any of you missed it, Anna is going to be donating something, some merchandise from her merchandise site for our next membership drive that's coming up very soon. So if any on any of your social media sites, and you are Anna from Ukraine, everywhere in social media.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, but you can find the link to her merchandise shop and cruise around a little bit and see in case that you're the one that donates for that particular prize, you'll know what you want and spread
Yeah.
the word. And
Thank you
Anna,
so much.
thank you again so very much. It's very good to see you and